Hello, my name is Dr. Greg Olson. I'm here today to talk to you about fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia is a chronic condition, and if you're listening to this today, you may be suffering from it or thinking that you're suffering from it. Fibromyalgia as a diagnosis, as a clinical diagnosis, comes from having chronic muscle pain of over 3 months duration. Has to be both left and right sides of your body and both upper and lower parts of your body. It is categorized with 18 tender points, of which you need 11 in order to classically qualify for the diagnosis, in addition to chronic fatigue. I've been treating fibromyalgia for over 17 years. One of the difficulties with this is there's not a single factor or entity associated with it. And that's why we see people who attempt to solve this through drug therapy, mostly they end up taking serotonin and manipulating drugs, antidepressants, is that it doesn't address the full complex of what's going on. Now today I'm going to share with you 3 of the success secrets that we've had with fibromyalgia. Now that begins with looking at number 1 is brain function. With brain function, that's the most important thing that I have seen with regard to fibromyalgia. With brain function, the key thing I'm looking at here is how the message is going up through the spine, come up through the brainstem to the cerebellum, cross over to the frontal lobe, and then feed back to an area in the lower brainstem called the mesencephalon. Now that's a fancy word, but the mesencephalon is the control center for the messages going back down to the body for things such as the C pain fibers. So when this is overfiring, those pain fibers in your body are overactive. So it's very key to be able to know if that process is being regulated or not. The other part with regard to brain function is we look at how is the brain getting its activation or fuel. Okay, those are 2 key things, activation and fuel. 90% of the messages to the brain come from your body and have to process through this cycle here. So if there's an abnormality, an aberration, a problem, a trauma in those areas, that's going to be one area that causes this problem. The other area has to do with the fuel supply for the brain. Number 1 being oxygen. Oxygen can be affected by poor nutrition, chemical toxicity, different types of anemia. The other fuel for the brain is blood sugar. So when we talk about blood sugar, that's going to lead into the next area that I talk about for brain function, blood sugar and laboratory values. So when we talk about blood sugar, the laboratory values for blood sugar can range anywhere from 70 to 110. When you're in that range and doctor tells you everything's normal, where do you go from there? You're still having problems. So what we look at is an optimal or functional range. That functional range can be 85 to 100. So if you're within that range, we know things are pretty good. If you're below it, there's a good chance you have hypoglycemia or not enough blood sugar in order to feed the brain and the rest of your body. If it's over that, we could be looking at problems such as insulin resistance or dysinsulinism, telling us that your body is, again, not regulating blood sugar properly, again, neurologically affecting how this mechanism is going to regulate. Now, I mentioned laboratory values. The laboratory values, not just blood sugar, but overall, is a key area that we look at. Again, laboratory values from the lab come back very, very broad, very big range. And again, if you're in that range and you're still having problems, it doesn't help us figure out what's going on. So we look at that optimal or functional range. Again, I mentioned for blood sugar before, and one other example, especially with regard to the thyroid we look at, is how, with the blood sugar, is how the thyroid is doing. So with the thyroid, the laboratory range can be 0.5 to 5, saying you're normal. But from an optimal standpoint, we look at it to be from 1.8 to 3. And then we also look at how the T4 and T3 numbers are in relation to that to tell us if there's one of 6 conditions happening with the thyroid. All right? So the 3 secrets I shared with you today with regard to fibromyalgia, that are the top 3, have to do with brain function, have to do with blood sugar regulation, and have to do with looking at your lab values. Not the broad range, but looking at an optimal or functional range. Thank you for listening today. If you need more information, if you'd like to find out if this type of approach or treatment is helpful for you, then please contact us at 949-859-5192 or visit AskDrOlson.com. My main purpose is to help people get better, and I'd like to see you be the next person.